Welcome back, my humble listeners. Please have a seat next to your Uncle Fang. Why not cuddle up in that coffin over there? Ha 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 ha. I take it you're here for another great chill from the hill. To be honest, I myself can hardly wait to tell this tale of twisted fate, for it shall be my greatest yet. I call this one Fingers of Death. His fingers relaxed, and he felt the body sliding away from him toward the floor. The throat had blue marks as a result from the strangling. At last he had done it! Killed Montrose with his own hands, now to get hold of that dazzling gold chain. The priceless piece he had wanted so much that he was willing to let it force him to murder. He whirled and faced the window, his mouth dropping open momentarily. Those blinding lights! Someone was driving into the alley, and the headlights of the car exploded against his bloodshot eyes. He had to get out. They would find the body now in a matter of moments. He must get away as far from the corpse as possible. The gold chain, it would have to wait. He'd have to come back later when no one was around. He couldn't risk being caught here, for there was murder in the balance. With a screwdriver, he was able to pry open the heavy brass hinges of the mausoleum door. The door squealed open and he peered into the darkness beyond for a second before he slipped into the macabre stone-floored chamber. The funeral had taken place more than a week ago, and he had time in the interim to sneak back to Montrose' house, go over it with a fine-toothed comb. But his search had been to no avail. The gold chain was nowhere to be found. And then the truth had struck him. That immensely valuable chain, it had probably been buried with Montrose. He would have it in his hands in a matter of moments, just as soon as he was able to pry open the coffin, take it from beside Montrose's cold cadaver. It was there in Montrose's folded hands. He could see its dazzling surface gleaming under the rays of the small lamp he had placed at the head of the coffin. Montrose's hands held on to it, and he felt the perspiration forming on his forehead as he tried to pry it loose from those unyielding, icy fingers. He wrenched and pulled, but still the fingers held firm. In desperation, under the tiny, flickering light, he was able to move the fingers slightly apart and slip the gold chain free. A leer formed on his face as he bent far forward under the light to examine the treasure he held at last. His face brushed against Montrose's skin, and he shuddered. And then he felt those fingers, the ones he had been able to pry apart, beginning to close again in death. Close inexorably close like a steel trap. With a grasp, he tried to wrench free. They were closing tighter, tighter around his throat. He felt the icy tips digging into his soft flesh. He struggled to free himself, tore at the dead hands desperately. But there was no resisting those hands. They were retightening in death, and he was being trapped by the very man he himself had strangled. A sob escaped his lips. He felt a searing sensation in his lungs as he tried to gulp the air. And then everything was turning dark like a bulb that had burnt out. And he was falling, falling, falling. And there you have it, my friends. If ever you're in need of a quick buck, you can always go down to that haunted mausoleum and snatch up that priceless gold chain. Just don't ask me to lend you a hand. Farewell for now, my humble listeners. Good night and good fright.